Good evening. You are tuned in to Scarecrow's News Rant. That little piece of the show that's all mine to bark at the moon as if somebody was really listening. Did you hear that, IRS? Well, let's see. This first item is kind of out of the Jeer, we red-faced book. Some of you might have heard about this. I mean, it's been making the news all over the place. It seems that in Montgomery County, Texas, the sheriff's department was all excited because they got themselves their very first police drone. And here it's pictured, with their latest tactical vehicle. And yes, those are not military guys. Those are police in those very militaristic looking outfits. And they decided to have themselves a little photo op. They invited the press out to give them a demonstration of their fancy new flying machine, and luckily all the cops took refuge inside that armored vehicle because apparently the little helicopter gizmo was flying about 18-20 feet off the ground. It lost contact with the control operator, and yeah, you got it. It crashed right into the armored vehicle. Needless to say, the police department was a bit red-faced and apparently confiscated all the news because there apparently is no video of the crash actually happening. I searched the internet hard, man. I wanted a picture of that bad boy crashing into the what they call a Bearcat, their armored personnel carrier, but no video available on that one, darn it. Oh, well. Serves them right. Oy vey. Getting on to topics a bit more serious. Do you fellows in the audience remember this guy in the picture here? Ring any bells? Okay. This guy's name is Christopher Stevens. Christopher Stevens. Now, depending on whose reports you read, he was either an ambassador, a general counsel, or a head of the CIA in a little town in Libya called Benghazi. And, their consulate came under attack. Nobody really knows 100% for sure exactly who it was who did the dirty deeds. Of course, to keep tune with the current mantra, it's all blamed on, Osama bin hiding under your bed, Al-Qaeda or whatever. Bottom line is, what was going down in Benghazi was dirty. And it's starting to come out. I did a news article on this at the time it happened. And at the time, I mentioned that there were a lot of questions about how all this went down. And, it's kind of creeping out into the mainstream now that, they were doing some dirty deals. Some of the weapons that we had given to the Libyans, this guy was in charge of pulling those back in and making sure that our boys in Syria got them, to knock down the next domino. That aside, there was a lot of reports at the time about how this guy was brutalized by the locals. What it really turns out is, after the fighting was finished, they found him hiding out in the safe room. He had succumbed to smoke inhalation. The locals quite literally carried him on their backs to a waiting car, not waiting for an ambulance, drove him still kind of alive to the hospital where they administered CPR and everything else for like 45 minutes before they finally just gave up and pronounced the poor guy dead. He succumbed to smoke inhalation. No, he was not raped or brutalized in any way. The pictures you saw of Libyans carrying this guy over their shoulder were actually trying like hell to save the guy. They couldn't do it. The big question right now is, who knew what, when, and why was nothing done about it? Reports are that orders came from on high to stand down because there were U.S. military in the area who may have been able to repel the attack. They were specifically ordered to stand down. Some have supposed that what might have been going on here was a presidential moment in the works. Gee, wouldn't it be convenient if there was an assault on an embassy and at the very last minute, the cavalry came riding in and saved the day. And then it got out of hand and the ruckus got a little more violent than they had planned. That's being supposed. Oops, now that we got us a bad situation, we don't want anybody to know that we were setting it up in the first place. So we got to cover this up. Cover up. Cover up. It wasn't Watergate that got Nixon. It was the cover-up. So the Obama administration takes strike one. Cover up. Benghazi. It's looking like it was covered with a very thick coat of paint. This fellow in this picture, his name is Gordon Duff. This guy has, kind of a shady background. He claims to have worked for the United States Postal Service in their collections agency. He openly admits to having done some serious, big-time dirty deeds. Okay? And occasionally, I have heard Gordon Duff speak volumes about anal-probing gray space alien dudes and other topics which many in my audience might find verging on fruitcake land. But one thing is for sure, Gordon Duff knows his military ordnance. Through his contacts with the U.S. Postal Service, he has become very well acquainted with ordnance. I'm going to play a little video here for you that Gordon Duff, who by the way is an editor for a website called Veterans Today, all one word, veteranstoday.com. I'm going to play a little video for you. Take a look at the video as published by Gordon Duff. Make up your own damn mind.
This is Gordon Duff from Veterans Today. We're reviewing a film of what appears to be a nuclear weapon being exploded near Damascus. We're doing a confirmation on this. You're watching the explosion now, and we're checking this against the scale of smaller artillery, 155 and 203 millimeter. We also noted the presence of lightning. You're seeing that now, which indicates confirmation. This was a nuclear explosion. There's no question.
Nuclear explosion? In case the audience is not familiar with this incident, Syria recently came under a fairly significant attack, something that we should say is many times the level of ferocity that their local insurgents who are waging a civil war against the current regime much more ferocious than anything they might have been able to muster. Basically, a prized military target in Syria came under artillery bombardment with guns that must have been positioned on Syrian soil. And these were very significant artillery pieces. This was not your garden variety RPG or AK-47 that you would expect a militant to have available to them. It is supposed that this artillery bombardment was provided by Israel. It is also supposed that a rather significant bunker buster ground penetrating type bomb was used to destroy an underground facility within Syria where anti-aircraft missiles are put through final assembly. What you have to understand is that Damascus sits on a fault line that runs all the way to Tel Aviv. Now, the United States has in its arsenal conventional munitions that are capable of penetrating a significant amount of dirt and concrete and can quite literally reach down a couple of 100 feet before they explode with a conventional explosive. The problem is these weapons are huge. It takes a B-52 or a B-2 bomber to deliver them. The other problem is that the concussive force of the explosion is such that it could set off an earthquake on this fault that runs all the way from Damascus to Tel Aviv. So, if you wanted to take out this underground facility, what would your alternative be? Particularly seeing as how a small state like Israel just doesn't have any B-52s or B-2 bombers to deliver that big boy. Well, Israel was gifted with a few bunker buster tactical nukes that could be delivered by an F-16. Now, these were supposed to be held in reserve for our long-standing excursion into Iran, but it may have been that Israel chose to use them a bit early. Now, the interesting thing about these tactical nukes is that when they go off, there is a tremendous burst of neutron radiation that kills everything in the area. And it's been reported that some Syrian soldiers just quite literally turned to ash. It's a hideous weapon. But the residual radiation is nil. So you could walk in a few hours later and take control of that territory. It's an interesting supposition by Mr. Duff. Have nuclear weapons been used for violence? Like I say, consider, make up your own damn mind. If you ask Americans who they're most afraid of, and you list off Al-Qaeda, the KGB, the North Koreans, Russia, China, and the IRS, who do you think they'd choose as the most scary entity out there? Yeah, you betcha. Nobody wants to mess with the IRS. Man, bring on the Russians and the Chinese and have them bring the North Koreans too. Just please don't sick the IRS on me. Well, take a wild guess who's got control of this here thing they're calling Obamacare. Take a wild guess. Who's going to know every shot you've had since you were a baby? Guess who's going to know what happened in your last proctology exam? Guess who's going to know everything about that there, little spout of depression you had last week when your dog died? When you went to the shrink and said, I'm so sad, I lost my dog. Yeah. And now it's come out that the IRS quite literally stole medical records on 10 million people. They're being sued over it. I guarantee if they're sued in tax court, they got their work cut out for them. But there's an even bigger problem. There has been a long-standing tradition in the United States of political administrations using the weight of the IRS to punish their political rivals. Herbert Hoover did it. FDR did it. Truman did it. Eisenhower did it. Nixon did it and got caught. Carter did it. Reagan did it. Bush the first did it. Clinton did it and got caught. Bush the second did it. Well, now Obama's got caught with his hand in a cookie jar. The SOB has been using the weight of the tax collector against political rivals. And what's even worse, he hasn't just limited his intrusions into his direct political rivals, he's also used the tax authority against guys like me, who may not particularly agree with his policies and procedures, may not agree with the way the country's been running. You got a blog out there where you're talking some trash about the government. Maybe you're teaching people the facts about the Constitution of the United States and how certain rules and regulations that we're living under today were never meant to be within the government's authority. Well, you may be on their hit list. One journalist who asked the president some very uncomfortable questions about how he was spending the taxpayers' money was informed almost immediately after the interview that the IRS was investigating his last 3 years' returns. Another reporter has indicated that the IRS is going to evaluate his last 3 years' returns because it came to light that he did not claim $5.14 in interest he received on an account at the credit union. Isn't that precious? No, that's bullshit. That is criminal bullshit. That breaks so many laws that you might as well just throw out the book, okay? That is criminal activity. It should come under the RICO Act. That is a continuing criminal activity. And I'll tell you what, if people don't go to jail over this current IRS scandal, you know that we're living in a just us system. Not justice, just us. And that was Scarecrow's news rant for May 16th, 2013. I hope I got you thinking about those issues.